Good morning, everybody. Uh, I'm CJ Miller, and I say good morning because it is very early, about 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, I'm outside in my balcony in downtown Street. There we are, downtown, and across the Red River is beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana. Yeah, come check us out. What I want to talk about is my good friend and I, we went to see the Superman movie, and so I'm going to give you my opinions, my reactions on that, or whatever. First off, it's a worthy movie. We saw it in 3D, and the reason why I opted for 3D is at the time we were going to go see it, I would have seen it either in 3D or in IMAX. I would have seen it in an IMAX with the 3D. Uh, But yeah, that's just what was available. But I will give it an O, and the reason why I'm going to give it an O is because but also because you're going to enjoy this movie whether you see it in 3D, if you see it in IMAX, 3D IMAX, if you see it at a standard matinee. You're gonna see it. You're gonna see it. I get that they're saying this movie is meant to be seen in IMAX. I get it. Directors, producers, all that. There's a lot of action. It would look good on IMAX. Locally, our IMAX screens are not traditional IMAX. They're bigger than standard screens, but they're not the IMAX of that we have an IMAX at the Cyport, and they show educational films that go on for maybe about 40 minutes or so, and you're really looking at a floor to ceiling dome IMAX. If you can get to an IMAX like that, go for it. For any kind of IMAX experience, you would enjoy it. Just the spectacle of it, but I think this movie can be enjoyed in any setting. It is worth the money. If you want to spend extra money, it's worth it. You're gonna find your enjoyment. It's a more family friendly take on the character. It is. Um, and yeah, I don't think you're gonna get any great, dramatic, award-winning. Oh, this character is so. Oh, I don't think we're gonna get any best actor awards, but that's mostly because those things, they don't go to popcorn movies. They go to the English Patient. They go to the super serious movies or whatever. They go to even the occasional avant-garde. This movie does not reinvent the wheel. This movie is probably the most comic booky, cartoonish of a superhero movie. But unlike the failed Green Lantern movie, it works here. Because, yeah. Because basically the material is better. It's not an origin story of sorts, because we already know. They tell you about, you get to examine a little bit of Clark Kent's Kryptonian history. There's a big part of this movie where he kind of has to reconcile his Kryptonian parentage, or whatever, if you will, to his humanity being raised on Earth. You know, the way that plays out, it's not my favorite part of the movie. It's probably what I had the most trouble with. And the only other part that I had trouble with that this version of the character is David Cornsweth was 31 when he filmed. He might be playing the character slightly younger or around the same age or whatever. But I don't. What does it take to go through journalism school and then get a job and then be on the job for at least 3 years? But he's a little bit cocky in this movie, and that's not something that hasn't been spoiled. You know, he's got a little bit of a. He's a little bit, just slightly full of himself. So, not in a bullying way, not in a jerkish way at all. That he means to be that way, but even Lex Luthor at one point mentions his cocky grin. You know, that's just what that cocky. You know, so yeah, that's a part of this character. I think that's something that would happen to a person younger than say 29, 30, 31. I feel like that particular something happens earlier. I think for most of us, so I felt like, especially for someone who's supposed to be that professional and that accomplished by that time in their life, I feel like maybe the cockiness would have subsided, and the humility. But this is a movie that kind of, you realize, oh hey, something that I thought is not true, and so there is some humility to be gained throughout this movie. But the themes of this movie, they are so readily accessible to people of all ages. We can all identify with this. Whereas in some other versions, say Man of Steel, Batman versus Superman, some of those themes maybe were a little higher than some of the younger viewers maybe would be able to relate to. Like, that's not a movie, Batman versus Superman. That's not a movie that I'd watch with the 4 or 5-year-old as readily. It would depend upon the natural instinct of the child. But it's not really, those aren't really children movies, But this one is. This is a movie that's accessible to audiences of all ages, and it should be fun for audiences of all ages. If you don't go looking for Martin Scorsese, you will enjoy this movie. You will enjoy this movie. Yeah. The relationship between Clark and Lois is important. There's one point where Perry White realizes that Lois and Superman, he says, how long have they been hooking up? And Jimmy Olsen says, oh, for about 3 months or something. So you maybe kind of wonder, was something given away? If Lois has been involved with Clark, does the audience know that? And then, of course, is Superman his alternate identity? And then, so it's kind of like, also, how would Jimmy know if Lois has been hooking up with Clark for 3 months? And if he knows Clark is Clark, but not necessarily as Superman, what? Whatever. Whatever. Um, that was one part in the movie that maybe was. How these movies there's always these loopholes or something. That's maybe one part that may be a loophole that I haven't realized yet. That's the only thing here that I can point. Now I can normally look at a movie and I can look at the plot and I can think of, oh yeah, but this kind of, I can, there are loopholes all the way through that I can find, but just on this first viewing in the that's the only one. Does Jimmy know that Clark is Superman? Um, Now there's something for a moment. Now Superman's not missing from the movie, but there's a point. Now this is not um, you know spoiling anything. It's in promotional materials and everything. But if you don't want to hear it, this would be the time to end this video or go away and not talk about it. I'll give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great, you're still here. Cool. Superman is in a cubicle that he can't get out of for one reason or another, and um, oh, for a while he's there. It's not just for an hour. It's at least for a few days or whatever. And then and because he wants to go in for questioning and he turns himself in, and that's where he goes for holding. So, but the also, yeah, but maybe not like forever or anything like that. Not for some extended. But what the movie never addresses. Hey, where is Clark during that time? We know that Lois knows, or whatever. But yeah, um, it would have been nice for at least somebody to say, uh, yeah. But potentially, and it doesn't just like say that. I guess it expects you to. That expects you to have some understanding of, maybe be able to connect a few dots, because maybe they did mention that Clark was back home visiting in Smallville, because that is where he goes to recuperate after his, for a time when he needs to. So I love um, what they did with the Fortress of Solitude. That's an important part. I'm glad they brought that back. Spoiler: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Promotional material um, reveals that the Fortress of Solitude becomes known about the whereabouts and everything like that. So, yeah, is that spoiled? Or does the Fortress of Solitude? Yeah, it's no longer the hidden big secret or whatever by the end of the movie, but not necessarily specifically addressed or whatever. Um, Maybe it's just so far to the north that it's just a treacherous place to get to, and so maybe there is going to be some solitude, and you won't have to worry about um, stalkers coming to his home because they know right where it is or whatever. But security there typically pretty awesome. But anyway, um, there is an Ultraman in the movie. The Ultraman is not the Ultraman from the comic books that I know, which is Ultraman from an alternate universe. It's basically Ultraman is Superman from an alternate universe, but not in this movie. Um, I don't want to spoil it. You'll kind of enjoy it. You'll enjoy a good bit of it. Some characters that are important. Kind of. You maybe not star character important, but they're important to the plot. E. Tessmacher. Yeah, and let's see. Well, we know that Rick Flag Sr. is going to be he's going to be an important thread throughout this. Um, so he's not at a co-starring level in this film, but he's more than a cameo. You know, let's see. Jimmy Olsen is important to this movie. There are some characters, some from the Daily Planet, some from elsewhere. They do. They are in the movie, but not to the point that you think. But they're not like germane to the plot of this movie. But their presence there is there because you know that they are there to set up other parts of the DC universe that's going to be told and revealed to us, you know, and that's okay, you know. This is a movie that can be a great standalone movie, and then of course there is the knowledge that it's going to the movie's called Gods and Monsters, and we get a kaiju scene here and everything. So you know, yeah. Um, One thing that I've not seen the movies do, any of the Superman movies, that Smallville did and some of the comic books did, was they took the feud of this thing that Lex has, this complex that he has about Superman. It dates back to their boyhood, you know, in some versions of the story, and I feel like that kind of resentment, that I feel is a better motivation for an arc for an arch enemy, you know, to be like, I hate, you know. I feel like movies can't always do that, you know. They don't always really get a chance to do that, and sometimes when they do, they get locked into that, and the movie becomes about their feud, supervillain versus superhero. And this movie is not. This movie is packed full of action. You're not gonna have time to get bored in the 2 hours plus 9 minutes or so that this. You're not gonna have enough time to get bored. There's so much stuff that happens that this movie just doesn't waste time. Um, Even in some of the longer scenes, because this movie does have a lot of quick cuts. You know, if you are attention deficit, you're not going to get lost too many places in this movie because it's a lot of quick scenes. You know, but underneath all that action, and just as important, not at all secondary, this movie is about relationships between the characters. You know, it's about workplace relationship. It is about relationship to you know, a person to the public. It is a relationship of a romantic. It is, I think it's enduring. I loved seeing Mom, Pa Kent, Martha and Jonathan Kent in this movie, and how they kind of relate to their adult son that's somewhat more achieved in his own right, even though farming is very important to the country and to the world. You know, that those are the agriculture keeps humanity thriving. We wouldn't be here without it, and it's probably the most important, you know, form of work, commerce, or anything like that. You know, that it is the field, you know, work in the field, the agri, you know, that kind of stuff. You know. All those things that 4-H teach you, I really think those are the most important things that go on. And hey, I see pennies. I'm gonna pick them up. Probably fall them out of my pocket. Nobody really pays respect to the penny anymore. They think it's going away. Maybe it will be, but by the time it does, I'm going to have as many as I possibly can. Okay, so, yeah. So I rated this movie O. You can see it on this, you can see it on this, or you can see it on that, or on that, whatever. In whatever way that you choose to see this movie, you're not going to feel shortchanged. You're going to enjoy it. If I could have seen it on a mega IMAX in 3D with, everything, I would have. Simply because it's the spectacle of the movie. It's not. It's not award-winning acting. It's not going to capture you with those performances, but it's not supposed to. You see, this isn't Shakespeare. It is not. It is not. Okay, so Nicholas, I had to play. I always have to do a little bit of a performing when I'm talking about acting or whatever. So, Nicholas Hoult is the. I don't know how a man chews scenery when he's not really around a lot of scenery. There's a couple of times I felt like he could have toned it down a little bit. Which is uncharacteristic for him because he's normally such a subdued, like even in the midst of things. I saw him in Nosferatu. He was the male lead opposite Nosferatu in that movie, and not the hero because the female lead was the actual hero. But yeah. He's great. He's brilliant, and I think he was just there's something in the promotional material. We thought Superman's head looked weird. His face looked weird or something like that. It looks better in the movie. I will say that I think the issue was less about the camera and all that kind of stuff, and I think it just has to do with the fact that I noticed this when I watched the world premiere, the red carpet, when on the 8th or whenever they did it. I watched it on YouTube live. I think what it is that David Cornsmith just has a really large head, like even for his stature of 6.4 feet. He's got a large head. And I think that's what we were noticing, But the problems that I had with the costume in still shots, they weren't problematic in live action, as things were moving and everything, The slight misfits of the uniform that I saw in some of the, things I felt maybe seemed a little bit more plausible in action. It still looks like a plastic or rubber suit and less like a cloth. I would love to see Superman in actual cloth clothing instead of something that looks like a plastic molded action figure of a costume, which we haven't had that I can think of since since the Christopher Reeve movies. I don't know. I didn't watch Lois and Clark, the Adventures of Superman, and I didn't watch the Superboy TV shows, and I watched some of Smallville, but the costume wasn't featured in Smallville, except for the last few minutes of the very last episode. So, yeah. Uh, but all in all, you're gonna enjoy this movie any way that you. This is a one size fits all kind of movie. There are going to be some people who are going to be pissed off that this is not your highly dramatic, this darker, Christopher Nolan inspired, Zack Snyder directed Man of Steel for the man. How hard it is to be a man, to go out and make the world. Well, this isn't that. This is different. This is different. This is a more universally related Superman. Truer to the character. And there is an evolution, and there is room for more evolution within this story. That's my review. Rated O for this or that or that or this. I love you guys. Truly. Love and light. Peace. Good night.